I'd like to introduce Richard Hunter. Richard Hunter is the PR director and spokesman for Dennis Hoff.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to say that I'm not used to having to spread disappointing news, but the story of my life. So it's only temporarily disappointing in the sense that Dennis was not able to make it here today and sent me in his place. But the reason why he's not here is actually kind of an interesting way to kick off his campaign. Dennis Hoff, if you don't already know, is the owner of the Moonlight Bunny Ranch legal brothel in Carson City, Nevada, as well as a handful of other brothels. He rose to national prominence on HBO's Cat House series for a number of years. But really what he is on a day-to-day basis is a small business owner. And that's actually what he's busy doing today. It's the beginning of the year. He's tied up in a mountain of red tape with all of his businesses and accountants and whatnot. And it's in a way kind of symbolic of why he wants to run for office, to strip away a lot of that unnecessary regulation, not only in his profession, but in the everyday professions of small business owners all across the state. And Dennis's interest in becoming directly involved in politics was really twofold. Brett mentioned the more recent example, which was the commerce tax driven by Governor Sandoval. And of course, that is supposedly coming from a fiscal conservative. But even before that, on the other side of the aisle, a few years prior to that, Dennis Hoff did battle with outgoing Senator Harry Reid. And he did it over an issue that directly related to Dennis's business of legalized prostitution. Harry Reid visited the state capitol in Carson City and seemingly out of the blue called for an end to the entire practice of legalized prostitution in the state of Nevada. So Dennis went to the state capitol. He spoke out against Harry Reid. He spoke out against what he saw as an attack from Harry Reid on a central Nevada philosophy of live and let live. And Harry Reid backed down pretty quickly from that. And historically, over the years that have passed since, Harry Reid and his staff have commented that it was probably ill-advised, that it really went nowhere, this idea that he had to eliminate legal brothels. And I think Dennis saw at that time that that was going to be his ability to make a change. Even though that wasn't a conversation that he initiated, he stepped up. He defended a right to personal choice in Nevada, and even somebody as powerful as Harry Reid heard the backlash from the constituency and decided not to mention it again. So we fast forward to now, and as Brett mentioned, Dennis decided that he was interested in getting involved in politics. He'll run for District 15, which is Greg Brower's seat. Dennis Hoff has a home in Washoe Valley, Nevada. He's lived there for a number of years. I've known Dennis well over a decade, and he has a beautiful horse ranch up there and has called that home for a number of years. And so he will be running there. I'll just mention a couple of issues that are important to Dennis, and then I'll take questions if anybody has them. Not surprisingly, Dennis feels probably most closely associated with the Libertarian Party on social issues. The state of Nevada obviously allows and has allowed for quite some time legalized prostitution. But whether it comes to that, whether it comes to gambling, whether it comes to their evolving position, as is a lot of the nation, on things like marijuana, on things like gay marriage, as was mentioned previously before. These were issues that Dennis was definitely out ahead of prior to when they were in vogue. And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that, you know, if you are a student of history, then you know that prohibition, no matter how many times it's been tried in this country and no matter what the vices we're applying it to, whether it's alcohol, whether it is prostitution, keeping it illegal, keeping it criminalized, refusing to regulate it from a standpoint of responsibility only gives rise to organized crime. The only people who appreciate alcohol or prostitution or marijuana being illegal are politicians and drug dealers or pimps. Those are the only people who stand to benefit from keeping it illegal, and Dennis Hoff has been an example of the opposite of that throughout his career. Second Amendment is something else that's very important to Dennis, and for a particular reason. He's a gun owner, like many residents of Nevada. But when he first bought the Bunny Ranch, when he took it over, it was still very much a Wild West environment. He's glamorized it, he's mainstreamed it. It's now fodder for Saturday Night Live skits and things like that in a fun, lighthearted way, and it's considered a very safe environment. But back then, it was anything but. And so Dennis knew the importance of arriving at what at the time was not much more than a little double-wide trailer and being personally armed because, guess what? There were some unsavory types around there who didn't like the idea of him coming in and literally cleaning up the business. So he understands why it is important for responsible gun owners to feel safe exercising their Second Amendment rights. Spending is also an important issue to Dennis. Overspending in the state of Nevada. I mentioned his outrage, to say the least, over the commerce tax being implemented. And when Dennis looked at the fact that spending in Nevada had tripled over just under 20 years up until the year 2013, he quickly concluded, as a business owner, that simply throwing more money at the problem was not going to fix the issue. Also, Dennis is adamantly opposed to any abuse of eminent domain laws. He frequently travels from northern Nevada, Washoe Valley area, where he'll be running, Carson City, where the Bunny Ranch is, all the way down here to just outside of Las Vegas, where he has two other legal brothels, the Alien Cat House and the Love Ranch Vegas. And that's, if anybody's ever made that trip, that's a good 7-8 hours in your car, and you're not seeing a whole lot on that ride, right? What you are seeing is a lot of government-controlled land, and Dennis believes in the philosophy of the Sagebrush Rebellion, that a lot of that land should be restored to responsible private citizens, and that they should have control over that land rather than the government. Also, drinking age. Dennis is interested in the idea of supporting lowering the drinking age to 18. Why is that? Well, that's because you can go to war when you're 18, you can vote when you're 18, and 18 is the age to get into the Moonlight Bunny Ranch. So he would like to see that uniform across the board and everybody be able to have a good time. Also, right to privacy. This is something that Dennis is, I think, increasingly concerned about, as I think many of us are, especially in the computer age, especially everything that we saw post 9/11 with the Patriot Act. And, Dennis has made a business out of protecting people's right to privacy, quite frankly. And I think he realizes the importance of the average citizen being able to expect that from their government. So I think that's something that you will see Dennis speak out a lot about during his campaign. His Twitter handle is @DennisHoff, and the website is DennisHoff4Senate2016.com. So we'll be having more information up there. Obviously, you would like to hear from the candidate himself, and you will. Dennis is, he's a little shy in the media. He takes some coaxing, but occasionally we can get him to make a public comment. So I think if we try real hard, if anybody wants to have a word with Dennis, we can arrange that. And after we conclude here, I'd certainly be happy to hook you guys up with his personal cell phone number and make him available to you. But in the meantime, since he's not here today, if anybody does have any questions, I would be happy to take them. No? Did I just lay it all out? You're convinced. I love it. Yes.
All right, so let's talk about the dollars in these kinds of races. District 3 in Henderson, it's reported that's going to take over $1 million to win. You got Roberson, Tarkanian, Fiore in there. How does Dennis plan to go about tackling the big money interest in this? Is he going to put his own money behind this? Is he running a Donald Trump type campaign? That's
a great question, and yes, he is going to put his own money behind it. Dennis feels like the only way to be able to say with a straight face that you're not going to be bought by special interests is, quite frankly, not to take their money. It is unfortunate that you need to be wealthy in order to completely finance your own campaign in this day and age. But if we're being honest, we all know that that's part of the game, and I think it's a good reason to support Dennis Hoff for state senate, because you know that he will not be taking special interest money. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Remember to follow Dennis on Twitter @DennisHoff, and I'll Make this number available. Thank you.